Today we're here in the home of Cecelia Henry. Cecelia, thank you for welcoming us to your home. It's lovely and it's much cooler than being on a porch somewhere today.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I am so glad that you've moved to the village, and will you tell people where you moved from?
I moved from a little town called Williston, which is between Gainesville and Ocala. Little country town. Started there with 2 red lights and left there with 4 red lights.
And I bet you were a part of that population explosion.
I was, but it's even getting bigger now, so a lot of people moving in.
And when did you move to the village?
I moved here a year ago this month.
And there was a major factor in your life that made you think about moving. You want to share that with us?
Yes, I had a stroke and I didn't want to move in with my children, and my son suggested the village and he brought me here. And I found this home, and we left and went other places looking for homes, and something called me back here and I bought it on the spot.
Great. Well,
Yes.
It's a lovely home.
Oh, and I love it.
And you're here in Riverwoods.
Yes, in Riverwoods. And the best neighbors in the world.
I'm sure I would agree with you too.
Yes.
Cecelia, were not born in Williston.
I wasn't.
Where were you born?
I was born in Avon Park, Florida, and then moved in my older years to Tampa. And then my father was transferred to Williston to work for Dixie Lilly in ConAgra, and then married my husband and spent the rest of my time there.
How did you and your husband meet?
Well, we both went to the Baptist Church in Williston, and I worked at a convenience store part-time, and he was going to college. He was a senior at UF, and we met at a convenience store, and he asked me out, and the rest is history.
And how long were you married?
30 years. Dated 2.5, married 30.
And you mentioned your son. What about other children?
I have 2 sons. I have 2 children, a daughter and a son. My son lives in Live Oak, and my daughter lives in Atlanta.
And I know you have grandchildren.
I do.
Share with us.
I have 4. I have 2 granddaughters and 2 grandsons. One's getting out of the Marines now and heading to Pennsylvania to college, and my granddaughter's at FSU. And then I have 2 younger ones that are 11 and 12. Big difference in age.
Yes. But it'll be fun to join their adventures along the way.
Last week I was at a rodeo. My granddaughter rodeos. And my grandson's ridden bulls. But he's into baseball now, so they all have different activities.
When you would you share a little bit with us about your experience with a stroke so that other people know what are some of the warning signs?
Okay, I was sitting in my living room one morning, and my children call me every morning, and they noticed I was saying things that just didn't make sense for me. So my son, being in Live Oak, said, "Mom, I'm on my way to get you." And I fought him and said, "There's nothing wrong with me." But praise the Lord, he came, because I was 15 minutes away from not being able to get the clotbuster shot. And on the way there, I was fighting with him, telling him there's nothing wrong. I got out of the truck and I walked normally. And when I walked into the hospital and they did the test, I couldn't feel my right side. And within seconds, I was in the back room getting the shot. And so my son said, "Mom, it's time you moved closer to us." But I didn't want to live with them. That's not right. But he had mentioned the village, and he had played trumpet here a couple of times during the Christmas cantatas. They asked him to come. So when he mentioned the village, I just lit up, because I'd been here and knew that I loved the trees, and it kind of felt like back home for me. Mm-hmm. And that's how I came to the village.
But prior to that, like a lot of other people who've been to something at the village, you didn't know about the Riverwoods neighborhood?
No, I had never been to the Riverwoods. When I came, it was always at the church, and that's all I knew. So when the real estate agent brought me down here, it just convinced me even more. And after I looked at this house, she took me shopping for more homes, and something was just calling me here. I wanted this home, and I haven't regretted moving here. And the back porch I love. I just love everything about it.
Well, you have done a lovely job of working in your backyard.
Thank you.
You said you're a gardener, and
I love it. I love being outside.
Even in the heat, huh?
Yes. Yes. The neighbors say, "Get back in." But yeah, I love it.
And you share your home with who?
I share my home with a dog named Millie, a little Yorkie.
And Millie's not around at the moment.
She's in the bedroom, and I'm praying she stays quiet.
We won't call her name again then.
No. No.
When you were growing up, what were your interests then?
Horse riding. Yes, I rode horses. I loved it. And then when I married my husband, then it just became, being a wife and raising the children. And then as I've got older, it's changed to quilting and working in the yard. So those have always been my loves.
Well, you've shared with me some of your quilting, and it is beautiful work.
Yes, thank you.
And that's gotten you into a volunteer opportunity here at the village.
It has. I said once when I got my house to where I was pleased with it, because I had to have the roof put on and air conditioning and stuff, I wanted to volunteer, and I've loved that as well.
And you're taking pieces that have already been made but not quilted, is that right?
Yes. In fact, the rustic shop is moving the sewing part into another place. Mm-hmm. And in the midst of that, I found these pieces of fabric that I could quilt that would be beautiful as hangers for Christmas. So now I've brought that home to work on those, and hopefully they'll be ready for Christmas.
Well, that'll be a great gift for the shop too.
I hope so, because I've realized, all the things that's in there is to give back to the community. So I hope they sell.
I'm sure they
and
will.
Bring in a good amount of money for them.
I know that music was a part of your husband's life.
Yes.
How about yours?
Well, I didn't know a thing about it, but when I started dating my husband, I thought I'm going to take piano lessons to have something in common with him. And I realized I was better to not have anything in common. So I was a hairdresser, so I stuck to the hair and let him do the music. And then my son started trumpet at 5 years old, and my daughter started trombone at 7. And they both took piano lessons. So yes, music's been in the family for a long time.
And your husband was a band director?
He was a band director.
At where?
He first taught at North Marion High School, and then our community asked him if he would come back to his hometown. So he came, and I think 18 years taught in our hometown. So long history of music.
Mm-hmm. And tell us about the property you lived on there.
Okay, my property belonged to my husband's family, and we bought the other siblings, we bought from them, and then my husband, we paid to have our house framed, and because he knew about industrial arts, he finished it, and we had a beautiful Victorian home on 13 acres, just right outside of Williston.
And you said you've brought a little bit of that neighborhood with you, that area.
Yes.
Tell us
about the bird.
Uh-huh.
The last time that I left my hometown to move here, my house had gates that opened. So I drove outside the gate and stopped, and the most beautiful cardinal was sitting on my mailbox. And of course I was crying because it was sad. Mm-hmm. And when I pulled off, the cardinal flew with me. And I came to this house and looked in the backyard, and there was a cardinal sitting on the fence. So that just made me feel even more at home.
A goodbye and a welcome.
Yes. And the peace of knowing it's okay. I felt, and it's weird, but I've never been sad. I miss the home, but this is my home, and I'm not sad. This is where God wanted me to be, and I know it without a doubt. Because I've met so many wonderful friends, and I just feel like I just fit in. And this is God's purpose and will. It really is. I know it. And my kids would tell you the same, because they see a difference in Mom that they've never seen.
And I would describe you as vivacious, outgoing, and you said that's not really you?
No.
Or wasn't in the past?
I was talking to my daughter this morning, and I told her what I mentioned to you yesterday, and she said, Mom, that's true, because my husband's been gone 18 years. So even though I was a hairdresser and had the gift of gab, I also went home to an empty house for 18 years where there was nobody but me. So that made me become very reclusive. But it's just different.
And I think that's one thing that really helps people in their retirement years is having community and being involved.
Most definitely, because I was just curling up and becoming very withdrawn. And now I see a smile on my kid's face all the time because I'm going to different dinners or going to the rustic shop to work. This has just brought me back life. Really has.
What are some of your favorite memories from childhood?
Mostly growing up on the farm and being raised on the farm. Back then, I came from a small town. They didn't have movie theaters or anything. So it was riding horses or playing with the dogs. And then, of course, my husband Johnny being a big part of it later on in life. And he loved the farm as well. So just farm life and country life for me.
And do you have siblings?
There's 5 of us, and there's only 2 left. My 3 brothers have passed. And my sister lives in the same hometown I left. And I stay in touch with her pretty much daily.
What do you think is your favorite part about the village?
There's a lot that I care about. The people I love. But I ride my golf cart twice a day. And I love the setting of the trees and the calmness and I have to tell you, I just love everything, really. Because I love going by the waterfalls and seeing the waterfalls and the ducks and people walking their animals and talking. I have to say everything. But the setting was the trees, because I feel like because I was on 13 acres, so I'm used to not being close to someone. But here I have the trees that makes me feel like I'm back home, and the closeness. I mean, I love these neighbors. Papa Lou and Barbara next door, goodness, I move them in with me in a heartbeat. So everything, I'd have to say.
And you like to travel?
I do, not too far though. The mountains, we had a home in the mountains when my husband was alive, and he was 1 year from retiring, and we were going to build up there. And then he got cancer, so then I gave it to my son, and my son ended up selling it because it was hard for any of us to go up there. So I haven't been back to the mountains in a long time.
Well, it's certainly nice to sit and drink tea with you. Thank you for this. It's beautiful tea service too.
You're so welcome.
Tell us a little bit about your life as a young child growing up in church and how that's been a part of your life.
Well, when I was young, my stepfather was Methodist, and we didn't go as often as we should. My activity with church started probably when I was in 9th grade, and then I went regularly, and then ended up that my husband that I married was at the same church, so we just continued from there on. And because he was a musician, he did a lot of conducting the First Baptist Choir, and we would have different churches come in to the gym and play basketball. So we were very active in the teams basketball at our church. And and it was always at the First Baptist Church in Williston. So most of all of our activity was there. So my church life really consisted of when I got, just before I married and during my whole life of being married.
You have children and you have grandchildren.
Yes.
Given that thought, what would you say to a young person today? what advice would you give them?
Well, with each one of my grandchildren, it seems like it's different advice that I give them. I constantly, and their parents push to have a giving heart, and that's mostly just loving, protect your friends, have a giving heart and a loving heart. And that's what I would say to them, especially in this economy, because I mean, in this, what's the word I want to use?
Period of life?
Yeah, period of life, you know, because kids pick on each other, and we just tell them, because my daughter-in-law was a teacher in Live Oak, and we just say, you know, you don't pick on people, protect people, love people. And I'll give you an example of this. My grandchildren went to Lake City with their mother, and they saw a homeless gentleman there buying some shoes in a store, and he took the money to the register, and it was just change. He didn't have the money to pay. So my daughter-in-law went back and bought the man socks and shoes and let my grandchildren give that to him. And those are the examples that we're teaching our grandchildren. And the pride in them, you just can't. You just can't. And my grandson, especially being the oldest one, you know, going on, he is 13 or will be the 3rd of August. He won't let kids at school pick on kids. And so there's probably a lot of things you could talk about, but I would have to say loving people and looking after them.
Great words.
Yeah. That was a proud moment for Nana, was that day.
You've shared with me and others a story about your granddaughter and then meeting somebody that lives at the village.
Oh, yes, yes.
This is a cool story.
Oh, it is. Miracles keep happening. My granddaughter was in Lake City getting her nails done, and she met this sweet lady at the nail salon, and they started talking. And my granddaughter was only 17 at that time. And when she left, she asked this lady, may I have your email address and your phone number? And so when I ended up here, my granddaughter was so excited because she said, my friend lives there, Nana. You have to get in touch with her. And so when I move in, I guess I'm here a month, and the lady sends me a letter, and it turns out her name was Suzanne. And she told me that she was sick and that we would get together some other time. Well, 10 months later, I'm at your house having dinner, and I walk in and this lady says, Cecelia, and it was Suzanne. So I finally got to meet Suzanne after 10 months, and boy, is she special.
She is.
Oh, she's special. So yes, Suzanne.
So your granddaughter introduced you to a friend.
She did, and those two, my granddaughter's 20 now, and she still corresponds with Suzanne by text. It's even Suzanne will tell you, teens just don't do that. So again, that goes back to what do you teach your grandchildren? Mm-hmm. So there's a prime example.
You were talking about quilting earlier,
yes.
And I understand you have been somewhere to take some classes.
Well, actually, my neighbor was a quilter, and I was having migraines back when I was younger.
Oh, and that's how you got started?
That's how I got started. And so the doctor said, get into something that will take your mind off things and keeps you busy. So my neighbor taught me to quilt, and gosh, I've made everybody one but me.
And did you go to Philadelphia or Pennsylvania?
I did. I went to Pennsylvania. Well, for one thing, we wanted a vacation there, but I wanted to research the true history of an Amish quilt. And that's the one that I made for my husband, is the story of the Amish. How when they're younger, they'll wear bold or solid colors, the men especially, and then when they get older, it's mostly black, white, and gray. So that's the way that I did the quilt, was the story of the Amish.
And that really resonated with me because I just got back from Pennsylvania and being in Amish country and just seeing all those beautiful works of art that they create.
You can relate to that, can't
Yes,
you?
I sure
The
can.
colors especially.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so.
But yet in their quilting, they use beautiful, vibrant colors as well as, you know, more subdued colors.
Yeah, well, that's with this. It started out with like fuchsia, and then it would get pink. So the colors were very bold or bright purple, and then it would start to mellow out and be a little darker in color. Not to mention, I love their food too.
That's true. I brought a cinnamon bun home with me, and I've been eating on it. It was so big. I finally finished it today. I never give up on something.
Yes, yes.
Oh, maybe a few things.
And seeing them in the fields with the plows, and oh, that was awesome. And the horse and buggies.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's an interesting way of life.
Yeah, so I was a little jealous when I heard you had just got back.
I bet you have lots of stories to share from being a hairdresser.
Oh, yes. I could write a book.
Why don't you share with some of your favorite memories?
Oh, my goodness.
I'm sure you had longtime clients.
I have, and I've watched them from a young age to passing, so that's always hard. But I had one man come in, because I did as many men as women, and his eyebrows grew together. So he asked me if I would wax between his eyebrows, or if he should. And being a hairdresser, that's my job to say yes. So he did it. And then his wife wouldn't let him come back because he listened to me and didn't listen to her. Overwaxed eyebrows. I thought, how ridiculous. Yes.
So in the period of time you had a shop, how long was that?
Oh, I did hair 43 years.
Only 43?
Only 43. I think if I didn't think I was having a stroke, but I probably would still be doing hair. So I loved it.
And when did you start seeing men come to beauty shops?
Well, when I started doing hair out of beauty school, I worked for a man from Miami. And I asked him how come he got into hair, and he said, because I'm from Miami. And he said, gambling, people gambled because it was during the Depression, and women got their hair done. And he had 2 daughters. He was married and had 2 daughters, but he said, I had to feed my family. So pretty much, and when he moved to Williston, he wasn't accepted because he was a male hairdresser. So probably 5 years after working for him, then we started seeing the unisex come in. And it was still very slow then. But by the time I retired, I had as many men as I did women.
As you said, many of your customers you had from early life to later, to their last days.
Yes, yes.
And I'm sure that they and you both had an attachment to each other.
A lot of sadness, yeah, a lot of sadness. Lost, for instance, I had one lady come in on Friday, healthy as could be, passed away on Saturday. So, that the bond is there. So, but I will tell you, when I moved to the village, I wanted to cut hair to give back at the nursing home. But I found out that they have, because I wasn't going to charge to do hair, I just wanted to do hair and give back. But they have their own hairdresser there. But the lady that runs it said, Cecelia, we have birthday parties. Why don't you come and do makeup on them and do their hair on them for them so their hair would look good. But we just haven't gotten there because I ended up volunteering at the rustic shop. So, but I thought, what better way to make somebody feel good? Flowers and hair, that always makes somebody feel better and look good.
And a cheery smile from somebody.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And the gift of touch.
And how many people do you know that gets flowers that frowns when they open the door? Not many.
Not many.
No, ma'am.
And I wonder where that starts. It's just the beauty of flowers, do you think, or the fact that somebody gives them to you, or?
I think both. I love flowers, but the fact that somebody cared to give them is even more to me.
A couple of weeks ago, my doorbell rang, and usually people just walk in my back door that know me. But anyway, I go, and here's one of my neighbors has this one sunflower that was this big, and brought it to me. Let me tell you, that brought just immediate joy. And there's something so happy about a sunflower anyway.
Yeah. So was it the fact she gave it to you, or the fact it was a sunflower?
First, that she gave it to me.
Isn't that sweet? Yeah.
And I understand she stopped by some other people's house that day, too.
Oh, see, isn't that sweet?
They had gone to, I think it was a grandson's farm who had raised a whole bunch, and she just got out there and cut them and shared them.
That's why I love, in fact, my neighbor across the street, Martha, I'll be out there covered in dirt on my hands and knees, and she'll stop and say, what you doing? I said, digging in the dirt. I'm always digging in the dirt.
What have you not shared with us you'd like to today?
What have I had? Well, I've shared what Jesus Christ has done for me. So I've shared that. And that would be my first and foremost thing. It's just what Jesus Christ has done for me.
And I would take that a step further and say what Jesus Christ helps you share with others is a blessing to this community.
Well, thank you. I've met some wonderful people. I wish y'all could have met me before I moved here. I just do, because the gift of gab I have here isn't the gift that I had prior to moving here. Something's magical in this village, just sheer magical.
Well, and I think for those people who are watching today that may not live at the village, because it's available as well on YouTube, maybe that's a story we should leave with them. If you're not happy where you are, or if you need a change in life, this might be a great place for you.
That's true, and the Lord led me here. The Lord led me here, no doubt.
Praise God.
Amen.
Thanks for tuning in today. We hope you'll come back for another Front Porch Conversation.